I'm Gary Wheeling. My kids go to school here, and I'm part of the Oklahoma Self-Bow Society. And this is Mike Haynes, and me and him work together. And he's the one that kind of got me introduced into building bows and got me involved.
Brought him over to the dark side. That's what our people we work with say. Yeah, I've been involved with this. I shot and built muzzle loaders for about 30 years, starting in the 70s from scratch, and shot competition all over the country. And started running into these guys that were making self-bows, and they started incorporating some of the self-bow contests into the muzzle loading groups. So if you shot a great prize, if you want to do the grand prize, you had to shoot muzzle loader, shotgun, pistols, and a self-bow. I saw it then I ran into an old man down in, he was at the rendezvous at Fort Washington, down Lake Texoma, they have every year for the school kids. And he had a bunch of bows laying out, and we got to talking, and he wanted to see my muzzle loader, and I wanted to see his bows. He ended up telling me, well, I'll teach you how to make them, and that's what it started. That was in 1990. And but I kind of still do the muzzle loaders a little bit, but started making bows, cutting the wood, and we'll go out and I'll make them at home. We have our OJAM event every March. We teach 400, 500, 600 people show up from all over the United States to learn how to make bows, and they can buy wood there, and we can loan them tools. It's crazy, 4 days nonstop from daylight to dark, you know, working with them. And we have, they said that you guys are trying to make board bows, which is a little bit tough because you're buying kiln-dried wood, you don't know the moisture content and all that. And a lot of them's pretty dry and they don't flex well. Depends on the wood that you have, but we do have board bows out there that we have young kids make and kind of teach them basics. And what we do is we cut wood like, I go out, this is a piece of Osage, Bodar, hedge, whatever you want to call it. It's got the green apples on it you see in the tree lines and the creek bottoms. And this was a log that was about 10, 12 inches, and we cut them, and then some of them we can split with wedges. Depending on the grain, you can kind of look at the bark and see how straight the grain is. You can split them with wedges, or I saw them with a skill saw after I get them home and drive wedges and get a better split on them so you don't waste any wood. But this piece, I think it was cut. It didn't say that. It was cut 2 years ago probably. And you let them dry for 2 or 3 years before you can start processing them, making bows out of them.
Good.
Slick pull. Turn this thing on. We're both about the only one that worked today, so we can catch them. But you'll have Bodar you can cut, you can make bows out of, I make them out of hackberry some. I teach a lot of people on hackberry. Persimmon is a good wood. They used to make golf clubs out of persimmon. And it's real hard. It's as hard as walnut or ebony or Bodar. It's a little harder to work because of the grain structure. But if you that wood like that, if you wanted to go buy one, if you people sell them at these events, you know, that'd be like a $100 piece of wood.
Really?
Straight, the grain's real good and tight. You can tell how fast the tree grows. You can look at the growth rings on it; they'll be thick or thin. If it was in a wet area, you know, depends on climate too. But, you got your yellow heartwood, which is your old wood, and then this white wood here is what we call sapwood. That's during the growth of the tree during the summer. That will carry all the moisture to your tree, up to your limbs and everything. It's real, when you cut one green, it's real wet, sap just runs out of it. And then you got your bark that protects that. But when we get started in making these, you'll kind of figure out what you want to do. And lay this up here. And you'll have, with the bark off of it, and down your last ring, there's rings in here. You can't hardly see these lines, but every one of those lines is a growth ring. You can look at these later, but what you want to do is get all that bark off and all that sapwood, and this one needs to go down one more ring. On these bows like this, you have to from one end to the other, it has to be one continuous growth ring, because that's the strength of any bow. Now, whitewood, it doesn't make that much difference. Hickory, their growth rings are a little different. Their wood's kind of intertwined, their fibers. These, it has to be one growth ring all the way. So when you bend it, you don't get any splinters popping or anything like that. Now the belly, when you start building it, you'll be scraping on the belly and scratching it and taking the weight off of them. But I've taken this one down a couple of weeks ago. I took it all off, and as they get older, they'll start turning brown. I'll show you some bows that I've made 20 years ago. They're chocolate brown. They oxidize, and with sunlight and everything. And I've laid a bow out on this one. It's kind of like I've got it, and I chose a center line. And if you got one that's real, you can get them real crooked and snaky. And I forgot to bring one like that. But you have to, instead of laying it out with your straight line rulers and all that, you've got to follow the grain. So you'll have to draw the grain, and then you have to cut it out that way, because if you cross the grain on any wood, you start bending it, it's going to splinter. And there's a lot of things. You got to keep one growth ring and keep your growth pretty much in your limb. Knots, they don't make that much difference. I try to lay them out for the belly, through the belly. You can see some of the pin knots. I'll lay them out, try to get them in the handle best I can. But you can't, so you can work around them. If they're in your limb, you know, as long as it bends good, it doesn't matter. But you'll get a little drying on some of these like this. I keep them in a shed, or sometimes I've got them in my garage. If it's a real good piece of wood, I put them in my garage and do it that way and keep them. So that's the start of one. After you've taken the bark and everything off and made sure, I've got a moisture meter, and I'll check about 8-9% is the optimum where you want to work. And that'll get your bow all the way through. And sometimes they'll lose moisture. If it's a little bit dry, it'll rehydrate with just the humidity in the air. And that's one thing, after you get your bow made and get it kind of stabilized and where you want it, then you want to seal it. Because as your bow in and out, rain and all that, it's going to take moisture on them if you don't seal them. It changes the cast of it, it changes the weight of them, how hard they shoot. And it doesn't hurt them, but you know, it's good to seal them. But that's the way I'd lay this out. I mean, I put it on a bandsaw. We have had contests where we lay these out like this, kind of rough them, and we have what we call a hatchet contest. And everybody starts with a piece of wood and a pencil and a pocket knife. And you take a hatchet and you cut all this wood off of here that's not in them lines, and then you take the belly off of it with your hatchet, and you make the whole bow with a hatchet and a pocket knife. Oh, wow. And then you have to you can use a string, you make a string for it. And then they have guys that we call them master bowyers, if you've been doing it a while, and they go in, and it's kind of, they're not involved in the contest, they're kind of outside people that know about bows. Well, they will look at them. It's made to sustain life, just like you was in the wilderness. You make a bow, you put a string on it, and they shoot them, look at them, see how hard they shoot, if they cast the arrow real well. And that's, you can make it, like you guys, he's saying that you guys are talking about maybe shooting long distance and stuff, and we have what we call clout shoots for 80 to 100 yards. The Cherokees shoot cornstalk shoots, and they shoot 80 yards. They have they'll drive 4 poles and lay corn stalks in there and pile them up. They look like 2 or 3 hay bales. You shoot them at a distance, and then however many corn stalks your bow penetrates, you get that many points, and they go to 80 points or something. Oh, wow. And the Cherokees and some of the other tribes in Oklahoma do corn stalk shoots. You can look it up on the internet, and it'll show you about all the fancy points they make with piano wire and all kinds of barred points to penetrate more stalks and everything. But cast is a real thing you're really looking for, cast, and not so much speed, because these things aren't speed demons like your fiberglass, recurves and longbows and all that, but they shoot heavy arrows and penetrate, you know, big time. And when we made bows with hatchets and they do that, and they give out some kind of little prize or something, he might give you a new pocket knife, but you probably ruined it making them, so something like that. But we get it all cut out. I know I'm going kind of fast, but This is one I did a demo on at our last event in March. It looked like this when I started it. And I did most of the bark off of it, but I had a demo laying a bow out and cutting it out. And I laid it out like this one, and I went down to the bandsaw and I cut it out, and that's where you get started.